And roll.
On?
We are on.
Yeah, we've done something similar before and we haven't pressed the on button, so we learned our lesson.
Many times.
So this idea came about from a similar setup where there actually wasn't an audience and there were a few of us interviewing each other for some ACHO related YouTube film stuff. And we really got into the flow of things and enjoyed, there were three of us interviewing each other and changing interviewees and interviewers around, and we just had the idea to do a similar thing but actually this time have an audience involved in the whole thing as well as record it. And when we were discussing Kelly coming here doing a talk of crystals, I came up with the bright idea of actually interviewing Kelly and Kelly interviewing me and actually just making the talk hopefully more interesting that way than just somebody standing here talking about crystals or whatever. So to be more conversational.
Basically, you've got two for the price of one today. Well, you haven't had to pay either. Even better.
Yeah. So obviously Kelly Peacey, I'm Michael Eastwood, and both of us have a very long involvement with crystals. Briefly mine, I've been involved with crystals, crystal healing, and the crystal business for 30 years. And I started Arista in 1989. Obviously I was a child when I started, but no, I was very young.
I was in the womb.
No, I was in my early 20s, so it was now when I think back how audacious it was to start something at 20, I think it was 22.
So it would have been quite unusual then as well, wouldn't it?
Absolutely.
You know, 'cause it was,
yeah, and I had no support from anyone in my environment. My family and everyone was like, because I gave up my job and I gave up everything I was involved in, and just had the call, and I felt that anything was better than what I was doing. So, and I was in a very difficult place in my life where I was at a crossroads. Not that I knew that at the time. I don't think anyone knows when they're actually in a crossroads, but I was. And I felt that I had a choice, and crystals sort of came into my world around about that time, and they, in a way, they saved me. I wouldn't be who I am today without crystals, the crystal community, my crystal business.
And Michael, the amount that you've shared with your crystal love and journey, I mean, you've helped so many people as well, haven't you? And so, as much as it's kind of crazy because we say, they saved, I truly believe, like you, they saved me. But actually, how many people have they helped? Mm-hmm. And that is amazing. And I know that you've had many letters and the thank yous.
Well, not that many.
I'm sure you have.
I've had a few in my time,
yeah.
But yeah.
But yeah, it's part of the journey, isn't it, of developing and growing and healing.
Yeah, and I feel with the crystal field that it is a community, and I've always been a great believer in community, and feel that I'm here to contribute to an emerging consciousness. And it's not my job to do it all on my own, although sometimes I do get hung up on that, but if I get a bit despaired about politics or whatever, but I do feel that the crystal community in particular is a very unusual field because it attracts very, very gifted, creative, sensitive souls who feel they are here to do something, and crystals have become like a vehicle for that something to take place.
It forms part of people's awakening, and certainly for me it was part of my awakening, and so a little bit like you, I was the early 20-year-old, who was at the groups, And people were, I had not, older women, older men looking at me like, shouldn't you be sort of nightclubbing or, doing something rather different? And for me, crystals were part of my awakening because I really wanted to understand who I was and also to deal with the kind of identity crisis actually that I was having at 20. I think that we're in society we're told that we should be this and we should be that, and very much like you, Michael, it was like, actually I don't really feel so good about what I'm supposed to be or expected to be, and I really want to find out who I am. And so for crystals, for me, I suppose I was sold it in the sense that it's going to help you. And I suppose what it did really was help me find myself. I see crystals as a really spiritual tool of awakening. I really do. When I walked in here earlier, the thing about crystals, and we had this little discussion. I don't know if you get a chance a bit later. Have a look at this. Now, I've worked in here many times doing the Crystal Ascension program, and I've sat here many times, and a few of you have been here with me. And I walked in, and the very first thing I did was I fell in love with the side of this crystal. And it was like, how did I not see that before? And so crystals are very cheeky, I believe, in the sense that they are magnetic. And sometimes you will know that they're actually quite repellent. But this crystal today, it was just like, hey, have you seen this part of me? This part of me is totally luscious and needs acknowledging. But it really, really, as crazy as that sounds, in that moment, I discovered something new about a crystal. And I think that's what crystals do for us, actually. In the moment, when you're working with them and you have that really mindful experience, suddenly you discover something new about yourself. It's like a seed of inspiration drops in. You go, wow, I really get why I did that when I was 17, and I'm so glad I did in a strange way.
Well, I think also crystals can, because I think in essence, the older I become, the more I realise that the crystal field is that we're all crystal shamans, and there's and I'm working on something new at the moment around that subject because it's really apparent to me, and I think it's something that's not really acknowledged. That often people dismiss crystal healing and crystal appreciators as a bit sort of airy-fairy and a bit fluffy, and actually there's something that feels that we need to acknowledge the serious spirituality behind crystal healing and the crystal path, and it is a path. It's not everyone's path, but it is for. And I've known lots of people over the years who have come onto the path and gone crazy. I've seen people burn out. I've seen people lose it, and I've seen people, go on the crystal path and then go on to something else and so forth. And it's always interesting to me how some people incorporate crystals within other practices and other modalities as well. But I think that there is something very serious about the crystal path as well.
It's really funny you should say that, actually. It's part of my journey with crystals. And so when I trained to become a crystal healer, I actually had 3 different teachers. And the second teacher I had, I remember just thinking, do you know what? I don't think I can do this. I have far too much awareness of myself right now. And what I'm really aware of is I'm really aware of my darker side. And so, spirituality is kind of sold to us as everything's all love and everything's all light. And yet actually, we're dual-natured. And so in my awakening process and developing myself, because when you learn crystal healing, you can't help but start the work on you, you must heal, be working on yourself constantly. And we're never ever truly healed, ever. But what happened is I developed the awareness of not only my lighter nature, but also my darker nature. And so it's like, yeah, actually that is a bit out of order, when perhaps, I react to certain situations or challenges in that way. And that awareness, I kind of got, so you were saying about the burnout, I kind of felt like I was sinking for a little bit in the darker side of my nature. And I said, right, that is it. I remember being sat there and I had a deck of cards, and they were probably something like, I think they were actually a Dorian Virtue special about 20 years ago. And I said, okay, universe, I need to know if crystals are my pathway forward. If I get a crystal, like a slight hint of a crystal shape on any of these cards, then I know that crystals is part of my journey. Okay, and so I'm shuffling them, thinking, God help me, no. So I've had enough seeing my shadow. And do you know what? A card with a crystal was picked on it, and with an artist's impression of a crystal. And I thought, well, I'm sorry for offending when I said stuff you. I'm not doing it. I'm having some time out. And I actually took a good couple of years out, to be honest, just because I realised that I needed to be doing much more work on myself.
I think that's part of the integration process, and I think our energy body, our light body, especially when we're working with a lot of crystals, there's a lot of energy exchange and transformation that takes place within us, and sometimes that process is very fast and sometimes it's slower, and to process that energy takes time, and sometimes that, you were saying earlier about dual nature, this yin and yang of our being.